She was young. She was full of life. She was loved. But one day, Sahela Sangrait vanished from her world, leaving her family to cling to hope that she'd come home. For 7 agonizing months, her name lived only on flyers, candles, and whispered prayers. And then, a hiker stumbled on a grim discovery in the South Dakota woods, the secret no family ever wants to face. Her story is not just about tragedy. It's about betrayal. Because when investigators traced the truth, they discovered the man accused of ending her life wasn't a stranger. He was an Air Force airman, hiding in plain sight. This is the haunting true crime story of Sahela Sangrait, a woman with so much to live for, silenced far too soon, and the shocking betrayal that shattered everyone who loved her. Before headlines turned her name into a story, Sahela Sangrait was simply Shy. To her friends and family, she was a source of light, a woman whose laughter could brighten even the darkest days. Born and raised in South Dakota, Shy carried with her the warmth of small-town life, but the ambition to see more of the world. She was known for her kindness and quiet resilience, the kind of person who always showed up when someone needed her most. Her family described her as their anchor. She was close to her mother, often calling just to share the smallest details of her day. She adored her siblings and often played the role of peacemaker, the one who held everyone together. But Shy was more than just family-oriented. She had dreams. She loved the outdoors, often hiking local trails to clear her head. Friends said she found peace in nature, calling the open skies her sanctuary. She wasn't without challenges. Like many young women, Shy faced moments of uncertainty, about work, about relationships, about who to trust. But those who knew her say she carried those struggles quietly, never letting them dim her compassion. To her friends, she was a loyal confidant. To her nieces and nephews, she was the cool aunt, always ready with a smile or a story. To her community, she was someone who made you feel seen, even in passing. Those who loved her could never imagine a life without her. And yet, that's exactly what they were forced to endure when she suddenly vanished, leaving behind only silence. Even before tragedy, Shy's presence was one of love, laughter, and life, which is why her disappearance would cut so deeply. She wasn't just another name on a missing poster. She was someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's whole world. And in the months that followed, the fight to find her, and the truth about what happened, would consume everyone who knew her. The first days of Sahela's disappearance were almost invisible, like a whisper no one wanted to hear. First, her friends assumed she was busy. Maybe she needed space. Maybe she had gone for one of her long walks in the hills. But then came the silence. No calls, no texts, no laughter echoing through her mother's kitchen. For someone so deeply connected to her loved ones, this silence was deafening. Her family began to worry. Days passed, and the worry turned into a gnawing dread. Shy's mother paced the living room late at night, dialing her daughter's number again and again, only to hear the same hollow ring. When she didn't show up for a family dinner, something she never missed, the alarm bells went off. They called the police, but the first response was cautious. Maybe she'd left on her own. Maybe she just needed time. But her family knew better. Shy would never disappear without a word. Flyers were printed. Photos of Shy, smiling and radiant, were stapled to lampposts, taped to storefront windows, and shared across social media. Each flyer carried the same desperate plea, "Have you seen her?" As weeks turned into months, the community rallied. Vigils were held, candles lit in the freezing South Dakota nights. Neighbors stood shoulder to shoulder with her family, their breath visible in the winter air, as prayers for Shy's safe return rose into the dark sky. But the silence continued. The phone never rang. Her seat at the family table remained empty, and the fear that had begun as a whisper grew into something heavier, a weight her family carried with them every single day. Detectives interviewed friends, co-workers, neighbors, anyone who might have seen her. But the trail was cold before it even began. There were no sightings, no clues. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. For her family, the agony was indescribable. Each day without answers was another day of torment. Her mother once whispered to a friend, "I don't want closure, I just want her back." By the 7th month, hope was fading. But fate was about to intervene in the most haunting way, through a hiker's unexpected discovery in the woods near Hill City. On a cold February morning, a hiker set out along the rugged trails near Hill City, South Dakota. It was quiet, the kind of morning when the forest feels endless, peaceful but also heavy with secrets. He had walked these trails before, but this time something caught his eye. At first, it looked like discarded debris beneath the brush. Maybe old camping gear, maybe litter carried by the wind. But as he drew closer, the truth revealed itself, and his breath caught in horror. The body was partially concealed, as though someone had tried to erase her existence. But even after months of exposure, investigators would later confirm what the hiker feared. This was Sahela Sangrait. News of the discovery spread quickly, crashing into Sahela's family like a wave. For 7 months, they had lived in limbo, half hope, half despair. Now that fragile hope was gone, replaced by a grief too heavy for words. The police sealed off the area, treating it as a crime scene. They gathered evidence carefully, despite the months of weather and decay. Even so, there were traces, enough to hold clues to who had left her there. The community that had once prayed for her safe return now mourned her loss. Neighbors who had taped her flyers to windows wept openly. Strangers left flowers near the trailhead where the hiker had made the discovery. Detectives promised answers. For too long, Sahela's name had been just another missing person case. Now, with her body recovered, the truth could no longer be hidden, and the first step toward justice had begun. But for her family, the pain was unbearable. They weren't ready for justice. They weren't ready for the investigation. All they wanted was their daughter back, and no headline, no evidence bag, no press release could give them that. Still, even in grief, her loved ones clung to one question. Who could have done this? The answer would come soon, and it would shock them all. When Sahela's body was recovered, the investigation finally had a starting point. Forensics teams combed through the evidence, searching for anything that time and weather hadn't erased. The months of exposure made their work difficult, but science had a way of holding on to secrets. They found them, DNA samples, fibers, clues left behind that would point to a man no one had suspected. Detectives traced the DNA back through state and federal databases. When the results came in, the name shocked even seasoned investigators. Quintarius Chappelle, a young U.S. Air Force airman. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a drifter. He wasn't some faceless predator hiding in the shadows. He was a man who wore the uniform of the U.S. military, a man trusted to serve his country, and he was now accused of betraying that trust in the worst way imaginable. The betrayal stung like acid. For her family, the idea that someone sworn to protect could be capable of this crime was almost unbearable. Detectives confronted him at the base. At first, he denied everything, but the evidence was undeniable. DNA connected him to the scene. The timeline matched, and beneath the surface of his life as a soldier, darker truths began to emerge. To the outside world, he had been just another airman. But now, he was the prime suspect in a murder case that had left an entire community shattered. For investigators, the question wasn't just who anymore. It was why. Why had he done it? What had connected him to Sahela? And why had he been able to live freely while her family suffered in silence? The arrest sent ripples across the country. It wasn't just a local tragedy anymore. It was a story of betrayal, of a young woman's life stolen, and of a man who had hidden behind a uniform while a grieving family searched for answers. For Sahela's loved ones, the arrest was bittersweet. On one hand, the truth was finally emerging. but on the other, no amount of justice could bring her back. The arrest of Airman Quintarius Chappelle shook not just South Dakota but the nation. For months, he had lived his life freely, wearing the uniform of the United States Air Force, while Sahela's family mourned in silence. Now, the mask had slipped. The Air Force handed him over to civilian authorities. In handcuffs, he looked nothing like the soldier he once portrayed, no longer a protector, but a man accused of destroying a family's world. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was heavy. Sahela's family sat in the front row, their hands clasped tightly together. Each time the prosecutor spoke her name, her mother flinched. Each detail about her final moments cut deeper than the last. Prosecutors laid out the evidence. The DNA match, the forensic timeline, the hidden connections between Sahela and her accused killer. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed a chilling picture, one that made denial impossible. For her family, the betrayal cut deeper than anything. They had once trusted the uniform he wore. Now they saw it as a mask hiding a predator. The community that had rallied during the search now gathered for justice. Vigils became court gatherings. Neighbors who once prayed for Shai's safe return now demanded accountability. Reporters broadcast updates nationwide. Headlines screamed of betrayal. Airmen charged in murder of South Dakota woman. True crime enthusiasts, activists, and grieving strangers followed every detail, united by the injustice of her loss. But for her family, the trial wasn't about headlines. It was about her, about making sure her name wasn't forgotten. Her story wasn't buried beneath her killer's lies. The legal process was slow, painful, and filled with delays. Yet through every hearing, every press conference, every painful piece of evidence, her family endured, because they knew at the end of this long road, justice was waiting. For her family, the fight for justice was never about headlines, uniforms, or courtrooms. It was about Sahela. She was more than a case file, more than evidence, more than a tragic story. She was a daughter, a sister, an aunt, and a friend. She was laughter on quiet evenings, warmth at family dinners, and the calm voice that could ease anyone's storm. Even after her death, her memory continued to guide those who loved her. Her family remembered her not for the way her story ended, but for the way she lived, with kindness, strength, and quiet courage. Her mother once said, "I still hear her voice, I still feel her presence, and I will carry her with me until my last breath." To her community, her story was a reminder that even in small towns, darkness can hide in plain sight, and that betrayal can come from where it's least expected. The trial brought answers, but answers could never fill the hole she left behind. Justice, in the legal sense, might have been served, but no sentence could undo the years of waiting, the nights of unanswered prayers, or the pain of her absence. Yet even in tragedy, there was resilience. Her family turned their pain into purpose, vowing to keep her story alive so that others might be spared the same fate. And for those who hear her story, the message is clear. Sahela Sangrait should never be remembered as a victim alone. She should be remembered as the vibrant, loving soul she was, and the light that her family continues to carry forward. The story of Sahela Sangrait is one of tragedy, betrayal, and heartbreaking loss. But it's also a story of love, resilience, and remembrance. What do you think justice truly means in cases like this? Is it the sentence, or is it keeping their memory alive? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more powerful true crime stories that deserve to be remembered, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Together, we can keep their voices alive.